Hey everyone, Board Game Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a prototype copy of Scribbletown, a city building roll and write game by Desultory. Scribbletown is a nice minimalist game that only requires a board, a marker, and 4 chunky dice, and 6 special building cards each time that you play. The game also changes each time because there are 35 total special buildings that you can use to play with, but you're only going to use 6 each time you play. So next time you play the game, it will be different, changing up your strategy. So essentially the game is all about city planning with buildings and roads. Each building will score specific points depending on how well you place them on your board, and planning is everything in this game. Everyone starts with a board. There are 2 sides, a basic and an advanced side, so choose which one you would like to play with, and everyone else will have the same side as well. To help you in the game, you will have a reference card to check and see how each building scores so that you can do what's best for your city. Of the 35 special building cards, you will shuffle them and deal out 6. These 6 cards are your focus or goals, as they will score those big points for you. To build those buildings, you will need to configure the 3 buildings on your board, all touching each other in a group of 3, but within the configuration. And the layout doesn't matter as long as you have the stated buildings together in a group. I'll be back to the buildings here in a bit, but the game starts with a player rolling the dice. It doesn't really matter who rolls the dice, but since they are awesome chunky dice, I just take turns letting everyone roll them in a turn clockwise. After the dice are rolled, you will either draw the results of exactly 2 of the 4 dice on your player board, which can be buildings or roads or one of each, or instead of drawing buildings or roads from the dice, if you meet the requirement of having the indicated arrangement of buildings already built somewhere in your city, you can construct that special building anywhere on your board. When planning which of the dice to use, you cannot use the same dice twice in a turn, but you can build the same building if the result shows up on 2 of the dice. When constructing a building, you will choose one of the symbols shown on one of the white dice and draw that same symbol on an empty plot or an empty hex in your city. Neighborhoods are represented by a house, and they will score 1 point each for being adjacent to a park. Businesses are represented by a shopping cart, and they will score you 2 points for each neighborhood that a business connects to by way of road. Factories are represented by a factory, and when building a factory, you will increase your waste by 1. To do this, a player will scribble out a garbage can in their waste area, starting from the top left and following the line down. Once a garbage can with a junk pile symbol is reached, that player will pass their player board to the player on their right, and that player will get to choose a blank spot to draw a junk pile scribble. This will screw up plans for that player and make planning a little bit more difficult. The board is then returned to that player, and then they can finish their turn. Building a factory is one of 3 different ways to fill in a trash can on the waste chart. The other 2 is when a player draws a second road on a plot, as each plot can hold 2 roads, as long as they don't cross. And the third is when a player draws a special building. So remember to plan flexibly, as people will try to make things rough for you. Now back to the buildings. The farms are represented by a barn. They score 2 points for each business that the farm can reach by road. Parks are represented by a tree, and they are worth 1 point each, no matter where they are placed. Junk piles placed on your board are worthless and score you no points. If you're not constructing a building, you might be placing a road using the type of road shown on one of the black dice. Whenever you first place a road in a hex, you will add a small dot in the middle of the scoring circle. The second time a plot has a road segment drawn on it, you'll fill in the scoring circle to gain 1 waste. You can only ever have a maximum of 2 roads on it, and those 2 segments may not cross each other. Whenever you can trace a line from the edge of one plot to the edge of another plot using roads, then those plots are connected by a road. Plots are not connected by road if the traced route is interrupted by another building. Roads and buildings cannot share a plot, and adjacent buildings are not automatically connected by a road. Players will be choosing 2 of the dice to draw on their boards, or constructing a special building in which you must have the 3 building types shown on its card touching at a single junction of 3 plots on your city. Again, the order of the buildings doesn't matter. If you met the requirement, then you take a waste on your waste track, and then you will draw the special building in any empty plot on your board. You can have at most one of each special building in your city. When each player is done drawing for their turn, they place their marker down to indicate to the other players that they are done. When all players have done this, then you will check to see if any player has no empty plots remaining on their board, because that would trigger the end of the game. Because if all plots are filled in, the end of the game is triggered, and each player will score points for their buildings by filling in the points earned on each scoring circle. Also, at the end of the game, each player will receive a road bonus. You will find the shortest route by road that connects two of the blue road segments printed on the exterior of the city, and score 1 point for each plot used on that route, and you will write that total on the space at the bottom listed on the road bonus. The player with the most points wins the game and has constructed a fine Scribbletown worth living in. The game does a great job causing you to plan, and when you do certain actions, you will collect more and more garbage that eventually cause junk piles to be placed in most likely very valuable plots on your board. Players can be very creative in how they organize their city where the buildings or roads go. Players will want to use the buildings or roads that will best benefit them for their individual situation. And due to how the game is played, players will be choosing 2 of the 4 results on the dice, with each player most likely choosing different results, which will give completely different cities. The game is super fast to set up and teach. Art skills are not needed, and you will be drawing simple icons to represent buildings and lines to represent roads. Players will be planning on building each of the 6 special buildings to try to score mega points, but also playing with whatever they are dealt with by the roll of the dice. The reference card is great to have to remind you how each building is scored. The 6 special buildings can be referenced at all times, and at times when good things happen, like building a special building, bad things will happen as well. You will be gaining waste from your city building that will eventually make junk piles. When another player hands you their board for you to draw a junk pile, you need to study out what they might be planning or going for, and you should place the junk pile in the worst spot for them. But another player will also be doing the same thing for you. With 5 different results on the building die and 3 different results on the road die, you are bound to build cities very differently from each other with a combination of all possible things. If you like roll and writes, city planning, or games that can be played with unlimited number of players, then I would recommend that you check this one out. The art or iconography uses the simplistic minimal design to give you a great experience to build a city quickly. So grab your friends and family to plan out cities, build roads, and scribble on each other's towns in Scribbletown by Desultory. Again, this is Board Game Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.